Alberta Primetime with Michael Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, pushback to the new provincial wine tax. But first, from addressing health system capacity concerns to clearing the way for private betting platforms, Unruly airline passengers, and the pit putting a spotlight on our province. Let's kick off the program with our Primetime This Week panel. And joining us this evening, Tom Keenan, professor in the School of Architecture, Planning and Landscape at the University of Calgary, also the author of Techno Creep, and Darren Krause, editor and founder of Livewire Calgary. Good evening to you both. And let's begin with government response to growing calls for a health system lifeline, with 16 of Alberta's largest hospitals over capacity. And for the first time since a 44-year-old man died after waiting for more than 8 hours in an Edmonton emergency room, the Minister of Hospital and Surgical Services took questions from media Thursday. His message: assistance is coming, but it won't be in the form of a state of emergency.
We have all tools and authority necessary to manage the system. We can, of course, do better, and we will learn and do better. But I think the teams, from the hospitals all the way up to the agencies and even my department officials, have done fantastic work.
The government says, along with a new physician position being created to help hospital triage, the focus moving forward will be on accelerated discharges and spreading out patients to facilities that can handle the load.
They have finally decided to put a doctor at the triage desk just so people don't die in the waiting room again. That's an admission the system is in absolute crisis mode.
This isn't just a flu season problem. Right now we're seeing a lot of stalling, delaying, and promises that years from now there will be more acute care hospital beds.
The government has also ordered a fatality inquiry into the emergency room death of Prashanth Srikumar over the holidays. That report will aim to find out more about the circumstances and may contain recommendations to prevent similar situations in the future. Tom, it was December 22nd, the 44-year-old Edmonton resident died waiting to see a doctor about his chest pain. Surprised it took until Thursday for one of the 4 ministers responsible for health to come to the podium.
Yeah, they've got one job, which is to be accountable to the people, and you would have thought that they would have done it a lot sooner. It's obviously a very, very tragic situation. One thing that crossed my mind, and maybe you guys have some insight into this, there are these things called primary care networks. So if you're bleeding or if you have chest pain, yes, you should go to the hospital. But if it's something else and your doctor's not available, I don't know why more people aren't using that. 92% of Alberta doctors are in one of the PCNs. And I did use one once, and it was good. I mean, I saw a doctor in a different office who I had never met before, but I got the prescription I needed. So I think maybe the population of Alberta needs to adjust their attitude a bit and not run to the ER for every little sniffle.
Darren, what do you make of the government's response to the call that's been coming from doctors over the past week or more for the declaration of a state of emergency over hospitals being over capacity? How likely is this response to quell Albertans' concerns?
Well, first off, I think the doctors wanting a state of emergency is almost like the plea for some sort of help, and if you make that big plea, then perhaps there will be action taken. But the reality is the province actually has the tools. They've just obfuscated them. I mean, we've created a 3-headed monster in health right now, and now that these things are happening, we've got a whole bunch of band-aid solutions here. We all know what's going to happen if we continue to use Band-Aids to cover up major wounds, and it's not going to turn out well. The one good development that has happened today, and if for no other reason than to provide Albertans a snapshot of what's happening, is the province did launch a dashboard today that kind of gives Albertans some really good detail into how the Alberta healthcare system is performing. And at least to that end, we should be able to hold them to account.
Tom, it used to be AHS. Now it's an entity with 4 separate elements. How do you see the overhaul of Alberta's health system faring through the developments we've seen the past few weeks?
They just keep trying and they never seem to get it right. I mean, there was the whole fiasco with the labs and they lost a huge amount of money on that. They don't seem to be very well managed. I will say I've seen worse. I was in a New Orleans emergency room with my wife who had a toe infection soon after Katrina. And there were people coming in who literally were bleeding. And the protocol down there was take a clipboard, write what's wrong with you, and drop it in the golden mailbox. It was literally called the golden mailbox. And then someone behind bulletproof glass would look at it. So I guess I would have to say there are worse things in the world than Alberta's emergency rooms, but we definitely need improvement.
All right, next up, the Alberta government's move to regulate the iGaming industry as it opens the door to private betting platforms. Meet Calgary radio host Jesse Motz. He's managed to quit online gambling, but remains vocal about its impact.
I expect there to be tons more people with gambling issues as the years go on with just how in your face it is.
Government-owned Play Alberta is the only licensed site in our province. However, it only captures roughly 30% of the market, with the rest going to offshore companies who don't always have to play by Canadian rules.
We're not bringing online gambling to the province. It's already here. And so sticking our head in the sand and pretending that it's not there isn't going to make it better.
So the Alberta government is preparing to implement regulations that establish time and betting limits and banning athletes from promoting gambling.
The one that we are probably the most proud of is we are going to have system-wide self-exclusion on day one.
That exclusion rule would allow Albertans to ban themselves from online and in-person betting.
That is ultimately the solution to the problem. It's you, it's not me, it's not the government. You got to make the decision for yourself.
Recent Canadian reporting suggests 1 in 3 young adults gamble online, and of those aged 18 to 29, almost 24% experienced a high level of gambling-related harms, including credit card debt or savings losses. Darren, the new regulations are expected to take hold in late spring, so not too far off. But what's to be made of how the Alberta government is approaching its embrace of private betting platforms?
Well, I do appreciate that they are taking some steps. I mean, some of the rules are pretty boilerplate overall. It's just a question, you know, similar to social media sites and some of the legislation we've seen around the world in terms of social media sites and having youth being able to be involved. I think taking those steps is really, really important. But I think the problem actually goes beyond the legalized gambling sites, and that is all of those little sites that allow young people to bet with fake money or with points. And it's almost a grooming of future bettors. And I think the government really needs to take a look at how that impacts youth and how it leads to people getting into the online gambling moving forward.
Tom, how far do you see the concept of self-exclusion going to curbing the harms of online gambling?
People are going to find ways around that. They'll create multiple accounts. I'll never forget, I had a student who wrote a paper called "If You Can't Spot the Sucker in an Online Poker Room, You Are the Sucker." And he wouldn't tell me how much money he was up in real money, but in fake money, he was up $600,000. What did he do? He would play multiple hands using technology. He would have a video camera on a monitor somewhere. People are very ingenious. If they are addicted to gambling, they're going to find a way to do this. And, you know, it's even worse in Australia because down there, they bet on cockroach races.
All right. Time for us to take a bit of a break. But when we come back, contending with disruptive airline passengers and a hit television show puts a surprise spotlight on an Indigenous historical site right here in our province. More from our Primetime This Week panel in a moment. Welcome back. It would seem Calgary leads the country when it comes to unruly passengers disrupting flights.
There are many inconsiderate travelers, and this one takes the cake.
Calgarian Tony Martins was on an Air Canada flight heading to Paris when the aircraft had to put down for the removal and arrest of an intoxicated male.
The captain said, some of you might be noticing that we are dumping fuel, and we had to take an emergency landing in St. John's.
Now, Canadian Airlines reported 114 such incidents last year, ranging from refusal to sit during landings to smoking, fighting, indecent exposure. And Calgary leads the way. Flights arriving and departing from Calgary, from YYC, on the airline front. WestJet, meanwhile, nearly 60% of the reports.
WestJet has unfortunately had a shift in its corporate culture, a shift in its training, a shift in the attitude on board, and that shows. Now, WestJet says it's already taking a zero-tolerance policy, stating cabin crews are extensively trained to de-escalate situations and that it issues written and verbal warnings while also reserving the right to suspend guests up to and including a lifetime ban. Some aviation experts suggest taking it a step further.
You take a 777 or a 330 airplane and you basically divert the airplane, dump fuel, that's a $100,000 job. That's a $100,000 cost. You send that to you send that bill to the passenger.
And at the end of the day, it's other passengers who pay the price of delays and missed flights. Okay, so Tom, how does the suggestion of harsher penalties, like billing an unruly passenger for the costs incurred, how does that land with you?
Well, I guess they'd be an indentured servant for the rest of their life if they had to pay for that. You know, the worst behavior I've seen is clipping toenails and things like that. But I do have a bit of a theory about this. Alcohol may be a factor. I heard of this legendary Flair flight that was diverted several times, and they served a drink on each thing, and it got to be pretty rowdy. So I looked into some of the policies. I mean, I don't know how good the bartenders are at the Calgary Airport bar, but in the lounges, for example, it takes a lot to get cut off. I think the automated cutoff in the elevation lounge at Calgary is after 5 drinks. So if you go in there and belt back 5 drinks, you're probably ready for a tussle by the time you find your way to the plane.
Well, Darren, Edmonton, we saw the list. Edmonton, number 5 there last year, with 9 related disruptions. But what's your read on why Calgary captured top honors? Because that number read 45.
Well, it's a great question. I mean, one would say maybe there's a sense of entitlement. Maybe we like to drink a little bit. But the reality is, I mean, especially when you tie a bunch of the data together and you realize that WestJet is got 60% of these issues. Calgary is one of WestJet's hubs for a lot of connecting flights. So it's not necessarily Calgarians here that we should be singling out, of course. I think it's just that Calgary is a spot where a lot of flights come in from all points, and this is where they congregate for WestJet flights, and that probably has a large part to do with all of this. All sorts of personalities coming through, and as a result, maybe they grab a drink and they connect their flights elsewhere, and we have some of these problems pop up.
Indeed. Okay.
Good point there, because WestJet flies from a lot of resort destinations, and I know we were on a flight from Las Vegas, and my wife was a retired nurse, was called upon to care for a woman who clearly had too much before she got on. So you might be right there, and it might be the places that WestJet is coming from.
There we go. All right, one more topic, and that is some unexpected international attention for a notable destination in our province, thanks to a scene in the season 2 premiere of the HBO Max medical drama, The Pit, last week.
Where are you going?
Head smashed in Buffalo Jump.
Captain Crunch flying squirrel socks. Are we talking in code, or are you having a stroke?
It's an Aboriginal UNESCO heritage site in Alberta.
We had no idea. It was a pleasant surprise.
Nestled at the foot of the Rockies, the historical Indigenous site showcases where the Blackfoot people used their knowledge of buffalo behavior.
We pride ourselves on being stewards of a sacred site, bring more understanding of what the Southern Alberta landscape has to offer, and more specifically what Head Smashed In has to offer in terms of the ancient buffalo hunt and the culture of the Blackfoot people.
While it's unclear how writers of the show ended up referencing the site, it's already prompted a response by visitors.
We watched The Pit. We love it. It's a great show. Big fans of ER, big fans of No While. complete reference out of the blue, got us really excited, so we came down for the day.
And the pit has quite the reach, having recently won several Golden Globes, including Best Television Series for Drama. Darren, how cool is that for a shout-out? Especially considering Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump is set to celebrate 40 years of operation next year.
Well, as a native Albertan, I begrudgingly say that despite the fact that I've driven by the sign so many times, I've actually never been there. So to hear that it's on something like the pits is, I think it's super cool. It's a treasured historical site that gets a mention on one of the more popular dramas on television right now. I think I, like many others, will go, hey, that probably makes me want to go and take a look, and really helps drive Alberta's Indigenous tourism industry. I think it's nothing but great news for the province.
Well, and Tom, Travel Alberta also featuring a scene in a video that it's put to social media. Is this just one of those opportunities that can't be missed? What do you make of the attention?
Absolutely. Unlike Darren, I'm not a native Albertan, and I've been there multiple times because that's where I take people. You know, if somebody comes up from New York or something, they want to see something different. They don't want to see the Calgary Tower. They want to see something Indigenous. And the other thing I recall about taking them down there is they all spend money in the gift shop because they have authentic handicrafts in there, as opposed to the kind of things you might get in one of the gift shops on Bath Avenue.
All right, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. We're out of time. Great to see you both. Hope you have an awesome weekend.
Thank you.
You too, Michael. Thank you.
We're seeing restaurant orders decline. We're seeing retail orders decline. It is now harder and more expensive to sell Canadian wine in Alberta than it has ever been.
Less than a year after the Alberta government introduced a new tax on wine above a certain price point, retailers in the hospitality sector say they're taking a big hit and they're fed up. Joining us now, Reid White, president of Cellar Maker Imports. That's a boutique wine and spirit importer based in Calgary. Mr. White, welcome to Alberta Primetime.
Thank you very much, Michael. Happy to be here.
All right. The province calls this an ad valorem tax. We talked about it on a panel last spring, and my recollection is it was quite complex. But as someone in the industry, how would you boil down that complexity? What is this tax?
Well, I mean, this is a tax really on the voting public and people that consume wine in Alberta. Ad valorem, I think, is just a Latin term to keep it as confusing as possible in our circles. But essentially, for government, this is a tax that's being applied to wine and only wine within Alberta. And it's a sliding scale, but essentially it's a new tax that was added on as of April 1st of 2025. And it's a sliding scale of 5%, 10%, and 15% tax, depending on what wine you're consuming basically within Alberta.
Okay, so on that consumer's standpoint perspective, what does that do to the price customers are paying and maybe even the choices they end up making?
Yeah, I think when you look at something like that, I mean, everybody has a budget. You know, and depending what you like to drink, if you know, and for a lot of people that didn't even see this coming or understand that it was happening, but essentially what we're sort of seeing, I think, is for people either, you know, you're seeing less choice in the province, you're seeing people drink down or maybe decrease in their overall quality of what they might be drinking wine-wise. We're seeing escalating prices across the board in the province. And I would say certainly an erosion of the value of what you might be consuming. And it's very important to know that, you know, we exist in this sort of flat tax province previously, and Alberta was very competitive on that front. And people sort of, doesn't matter the value of the wine, you can drink whatever you want, but here's a tax that sort of the government gets their piece and everyone else sort of gets along with that. And this is sort of a tax on top of another tax on top of another tax. So certainly for everyone here that's facing any sort of, you know, interest rates, inflation, you know, spending and sort of budgeting issues, this is just another thing that makes life a little bit more expensive for the common person in our province.
Okay, well, and your industry obviously taking some degree of a hit as well here, but is there someone out there who stands to benefit?
Well, it sounds like it's really just the government that's benefiting, and I would say in addition to that, you'd probably see some of the multinational corporations. I mean, to really sort of run down things, they would be the ones that benefit. I think there's a lot of multinational corporations in the liquor industry and the wine industry where that money doesn't stay in the province. I think what people forget is most of the agents, importers, and distributors like myself are small business owners based here in Alberta or within Canada, and the idea is we hire locally. We keep our money here, we invest locally, we expand locally, and do all those sorts of things. So I think the bigger, larger companies that were sort of either immune to the tax, they were able to sort of skip over this, and their profits leave our province and country, where the rest of us are sort of caught holding the bill. You've got a whole bunch of small business owners now either trying to absorb some of the tax to keep things competitive, or passing it directly on to the consumer and just making life more expensive for everybody else. And in some cases, I think our industry might be looked at as sort of in contraction, if you will, rather than wanting to be in expansion, which is we'd rather be hiring somebody and bringing staff on and bringing new wines and wineries sort of to the market. Instead, we're sort of looking at, hey, how long can we afford to do this? How long can we afford to sort of absorb these costs before it starts to affect the bottom line and whether the business is viable? And that also translates into restaurants and hotels as well. I mean, this is the tax that once it's applied on our end, this is just the wholesale side of it. It then sort of gets doubled each time as you look at what a retailer adds on as their percentage or margin, what restaurants must add on in order to stay in business, what hotels do as well. So it's a really tricky time for our industry, that is for sure.
Dale Nally, he's Alberta's Minister of Red Tape Reduction, he issued a statement this week, and it says, Alberta is the most tax-friendly and open and free jurisdiction in Canada for alcohol, including wine. Our government's ad valorem tax applies to about 16% of wine sold, and after taxes, a $20 a bottle of wine at invoice prices up to 87% more expensive in other provinces compared to Alberta. And it goes on to say the ad valorem tax, not a new concept, used by many provinces across Canada. So, Reid, how does that position resonate with you?
Well, I mean, I think there's not a lot of truth in all of that. I think he misrepresents the facts. The truth is, when this tax is implemented, our province brings in approximately 18,500 different SKUs of wine or products of wine. This tax affects 17,500 of them. So that's about 94% of all the wine that comes into Alberta affected by this tax. And the highest tax tier, it's about 11,000 different products in Alberta that see a 15% tax added onto it. There may be other provinces that are using a structure like this, but Alberta, this was an unnecessary tax to add on. Basically, we had a very successful system that was the envy of the world, and now Alberta has quickly jumped up to being one of the most expensive liquor and wine markets in North America. So for him to say that we're still competitive, I just don't think there's a truth there for sure. And there were just easier ways to do this. Why target wine, I think, is a big one. Why just wine, and why just wine at a certain price? We're not talking about Copper Moon and Naked Grape. There's no tax on those as entry-level products in the market that are industrialized and made elsewhere. So I just sort of look at it as like, why this? When you could have maybe done a flat tax of 2% and done it across the board of every product sort of available for purchase, whether you're a spirit drinker, an RTD drinker, or beer drinker.
All right. We've run out of time. We have to leave it there. Really appreciate your time this evening, Reid. Thank you kindly.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael. Have a nice evening.
Reid White, President of Cellar Maker Imports in Calgary. Now, here are a few responses to a recent story posted by CTV News, and it's about a new deal between Canada and China to remove tariffs on Canadian canola and let some Chinese electric vehicles into Canada. Jackie says this will not only secure stability and prosperity for Canada, it's also very important leverage when negotiating with the USA on CUSMA. Canada should continue the path Carney has started. Gold writes, pretty unremarkable deal when you actually look at the details. Meanwhile, what did we give up? Carl says, why is Carney choosing the prairies over Ontario, BC, and Quebec? The trend has become obvious. Have your say. Email us anytime at comments@albertaprimetime.com. That is our program for tonight. Have a great evening and a great weekend, everyone, from all of us at Alberta Primetime. Thank you for watching, and join us again next time.